Welcome to Element 4 of TPP for Essex Partners. Element 4, Attachment. We introduce choice theory, consider how well-being starts and develops, and the power of connection in early relationships. This can be an emotional topic which may affect any of us in many different ways. That's because attachment is about human beings, which includes us. We may find ourselves having memories, thinking about our own relationships as parents, as a child, a sibling, pupil, and so on. It's okay to have some reflection. We're all human, and this affects everyone in some way. If you wish, focus on a young person you know, which can help bring you back to the topic in hand in a work-related capacity. Please feel free to do whatever you need to feel okay. Take a comfort break if you wish, and seek support if you need to. We have listed all of the content that we deliver in Element 4 for the full advanced level TPP schools and settings training to give you an idea of the depth and breadth it covers. The concepts highlighted in purple are the concepts that we will cover with you in our overview of Element 4 today. According to the American psychiatrist William Glasser, these basic needs are built into our genetic code. They are survival, love and belonging, power, freedom and fun. You'll notice that the first is a physical need, and the other four are psychological needs. Our physical survival need drives us to behave in ways to produce food, shelter and safety. Our love and belonging needs requires us as humans to have the instinct and drive to connect to our world, such as people who accept us or even better, value, care and appreciate us. Our gaining power needs demand that we learn, gain the skills and knowledge to use in our lives, as the more we know, the more we can do. Knowledge and skills are the basic ingredients of self-esteem, and our sense of success is important. Our freedom needs require us to be in control of our lives, to set goals, to make plans, to choose behaviours, and to evaluate results and to decide what to do next. Our need for having fun promotes behaviours that seek joy and satisfaction in our lives. Having fun strengthens us psychologically and physically. It results from accomplishments, recreation, and entertainment. Here we have a visual to represent Glasser's model. There are lots of versions of this online that you could use with a child or young person to explore. This is another model we introduced to schools, which sits closely with Maslow's hierarchy of needs model. It's worth noting that survival is similar to Maslow's physiological and safety levels. Love and belonging is the TPP connection, the importance of being accepted by peers and being part of a tribe. Power is not about having power over others necessarily, it's about others acknowledging your strengths and abilities. It maps best to Maslow's esteem needs and is really important for education as it focuses on the acquisition of skills and knowledge. Freedom is about autonomy and choice, and fun is the ultimate goal when all else is satisfied. This flowchart explains the consequences of getting needs met or not met and reinforces the importance of good, healthy relationships and interactions, which will in turn promote further meeting of human needs. If a child or young person has their needs met, a positive outcome will occur. Their needs are satisfied, there is a positive interaction exchange, and this reinforces positive attachments. Where a need is not met, a child or young person will seek an alternative way to get their needs met. If the adaptive behaviour is helpful and pleases the other, then it's likely that the child or young person's needs will then be met. This will reinforce the adaptive behaviour and is more likely that the child or young person will continue to use the alternative approach to get their needs satisfied. This can be helpful in the short term, but can lead long term to people pleasing at the cost of one's own needs. When there is a negative cycle and a less helpful alternative adaptive response is used, such as aggression, attention needing and risk behaviours such as self-harm, there will often be frustrations that arise and relationships can become strained. This can create further distance, and because the underlying needs are not met, they can get stuck in a negative cycle loop. This can then create further unhelpful behaviours which are counterproductive to resolving negative outcomes and meeting those underlying needs. The warning here is that if we simply intervene to change the behaviour that we don't like or disagree with, this may stop a less helpful behaviour in the short term, but it is likely that another one will pop up in its place. What we need to do instead is to think about how we can assist a child or young person to understand their human needs and promote relationships so that these needs can be met through healthy and enjoyable, trusting relationships and helpful exchanges with others. Unlike other animals, humans are born before their brain is fully developed. This is part of an evolutionary heritage and has advantages for survival. Human babies can adapt and survive in many different environments, whether that's from war-torn to peaceful environments, loving and stimulating environments, to others that are more dangerous and empty, or environments which are filled with cuddles and attuned nurturing environments, or others where they've been ignored and their needs are not met. A baby's brain will develop to match his or her particular world, and we know that neural pathways will be built on the basis of early experiences. We also know that brain plasticity continues throughout our lifetime, with key stages where the brain undergoes periods of redevelopment, e.g. infancy, adolescence, midlife and old age. Hope is everything. There will always be opportunities for second chance learning about how to relate to others and get our human needs met. It takes those replacement experiences we can offer through that serve and return concept from the Brain Builders video we watched in Element 3. We also introduced this model to schools and settings, which is similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs model, but this is a linear model, working from the inside, forming relationships, to the outside, respecting oneself and others. Each step or ring can only be accessed if the previous one is secure. This theory has come from Bruce Perry, a researcher into brain development and childhood trauma. His research has led him to identify these 6 core strengths that children need to be humane. A child who can form and maintain healthy emotional relationships, self-regulate, join and contribute to the group and be aware, tolerate and be respectful of themselves and others, will be more resourceful, more successful in social situations and more resilient. Problems arise when one or more of these strengths did not develop normally. Significantly, Perry's research has discovered that children with these core strengths rarely become violent and in fact recover more quickly when exposed to violence. We would now like you to pause the video and click the link to video 4 in element 4 of the video link handout that goes along with these webinars. Here we have a video that explains Bruce Perry's 6 core strengths model. Relationships built from birth shape the future of human happiness and health, and this comes from the depths of our human biology. Children don't choose to be born with these needs, they've inherited them. To value, understand and invest in this is the most important thing any adult can do for a child from birth. It is our responsibility to do what we can to ensure our children have their needs met, as the impact of adversity for children and young people who have experienced all kinds of trauma, including forms of relational trauma, are detrimental to their development, lifelong outcomes and for wider society long term too. Our basic human needs are met through social relationships and connections with others. Without quality relationships, needs will go unmet and we will behave in ways to attempt to get our needs met or cope and survive with not having them met. Sometimes these are positive adaptive responses, while others may not be, but instead become problematic for both the child or young person and others. We would now like you to pause the video and click the link to video 5 in element 4 of the video link handout that goes along with these webinars. This video explains secure attachment. For more information about different attachment styles can be found in the additional learning section at the end of this session. There is hope. An insecure attachment style can be changed over time by changing the quality of interaction between children and young people and those with whom they have a close relationship. There are opportunities for second chance learning through healthy relationships, strengthened connectedness, strengthening the secure base of the relationship, and adults being trustworthy, helpful and safe. Children and young people are in their school 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and for some preschool children this will be more. We need to make every minute of that time an opportunity. Think about how you may be working with service users such as children, young people or adults, and how you become that web of experience, promoting positive human interactions, that serve and return analogy. This will give anyone an experience and hopefully a positive replacement experience that supports build that sense of belonging and positive relationship with your service users. Never underestimate that every interaction is an intervention. Adolescence is also a time of passive change and rewiring in the brain, a huge opportunity for second chance learning. Attachment theory provides a framework for thinking about and making sense of the meaning of young people's behaviour, in particular about behaviour as a communication. We'd like you to think about how your understanding of attachment theory informs your ways of working. With children and young people, help make sense of the sense of confusion that often surrounds difficult interactions with others and/or with their learning tasks. Protect the adult from the feeling that the behaviour is attributed in some way towards them personally. Inform expectations of the young person's capacity to engage in relationships and tasks and contract plans. Inform interventions. Promote a less reactive and more reflective response. And promote opportunities for young people to have a more helpful experience of self in relation to others that may act as a bridge to thinking. We are now going to show another analogy called the good, the bad and the ugly. Even in healthy relationships, things can go wrong, but we can recover from them, repairing our relationship. Without this repair, a relationship moves from good to bad to ugly, a place that is bad and cannot be recovered from. The good is not about being perfect, it's about being good enough. It's about having good enough quality relationships and good enough serve and return with the other person. The bad is about something going wrong in a relationship with another, and a repair and recovery is required to move the relationship back to being good. Remember, repair and recovery builds regulation and resilience. It teaches a child and young person that it's okay not to be okay and that it gets better. Disappointments and fallouts are manageable and bearable. They're exposed to graduated experiences of manageable stress. They experience good enough care consistently, and secure attachments are experienced. Ugly is when you get stuck in the bad without repair and recovery and it becomes ugly. Young people get stuck in fight-flight state, which is a really ugly situation. It teaches children and young people that it's unsafe to not be okay. Disappointments are a threat. Insecure attachments are then experienced, and trust is lost. Here we have a structure of a sincere apology. How many adults do you know that don't or find it very challenging to say sorry? But we expect children and young people to do this all the time and do it well, or live up to our expectation of what a good apology looks like. Sincere apologies are so important because we apologise to someone, we can acknowledge our part in the rupture, and this creates space and repair. It is, however, important when using this with a child or young person to say that timing is key. The other person may need some time to calm down. It doesn't mean the person hasn't forgiven them, it just means that the person needs time for them to recover. It's also important to help the child or person to see how to get over a mistake, and how to learn from it will help them accept responsibility and accountability for their own action, even if it was the result of an emotional hijack, being in the downstairs brain and their stair gate closed. If we don't help a child or young person to see how they can get over a mistake or misdemeanour, it is much more likely that the child or young person will try to avoid taking responsibility. Some children are still developing their language and understanding of social situations, so adults need to differentiate this structure and possibly intentionally teach, model and rehearse many times to ensure that children have the language and the maturity to engage in this process. And remember, this is a two-way process, so as adults it's really important for you to model this to a child and young person wherever possible. Dances of attunement that a caregiver has with a child are the very beginnings of emotional regulation. Infants are born with no ability to regulate their own emotions, just like temperature, for instance. This has to be learnt over time with the support of a trusted adult. Caregivers are required to regulate stress for the infant through co-regulation, and this gradually teaches them how to manage it themselves, where they can then self-regulate. Co-regulation occurs through tone of voice, facial expression, touch, mimicking infants' noises and entering their state. Language develops an accompanied feedback of emotions. When children and young people experience stress and anxiety, cortisol is released. That child or young person requires empathy, touch, comfort, rocking, etc. to regulate the cortisol and reduce levels of stress. Babies' heart rates synchronise with the heart rate of their parent or other caregivers. Serve and return means the caregiver feels what the infant feels, understands, is keen to try and help the infant gain an okay, restored, balanced emotional state to enable them to feel regulated. Over time, with enough of these consistent experiences, children will learn that others are emotionally available to notice and process feelings, to provide comfort and help to make them feel okay again. This forms the building blocks of self-worth and trust in others. If caregivers are unable to feel with their baby, the infant will not learn to monitor their own states and adjust them effectively. We have now come to the end of element 4. Please be aware that the topic of trauma and emotional well-being can be emotive, and it's important to look after your own well-being. There are some useful links for accessing support should you or someone else you know need it. You can find this slide in a downloadable copy alongside our TPP webinars.